So we'll do the second question with yourself, Nick. We've got an eviction question. This one goes the first one is, can the body corporate evict a tenant? And the situation is as follows. I have a situation that my tenant that has been in the complex for 4 years, and that they do not get along with some of the elderly, noisy neighbors. Nosy neighbors, not noisy, nosy neighbors. They are now complaining about everything. My tenant works from home, but they are complaining that one of her 2 dogs bark. The dog is said to be barking at staff members and skateboarders. But the body corporate now has given the owner notice to get rid of this tenant, and has sent, and letters from lawyers have also been sent. And then, Nick, the question says, what right does the body corporate have? Nick?
Okay, perfect. So, great question. Let's first understand the relationships between the respective parties in terms of this situation, because it's important. So, we have a body corporate that exists. Okay, they're managing the scheme and the circumstances. The owner owns the units in the particular scheme. Now, it's important to understand that the relationship between the body corporate and the owner of the particular scheme is a contractual one in law. Okay, so there are body corporate rules that apply between the body corporate and the owner in the particular scheme. And then there's a secondary contract. That secondary contract is between the owner and the tenant. Okay, and that is the lease agreement. They have entered into a particular contract. So there are 2 distinct contracts, and although the owner is a party to each contract, okay, these contracts don't have anything to do with one another, not really. Okay, there are certain things that overlap. For instance, the tenant must uphold and comply with the body corporate rules. Okay, the obligation is on the landlord to make sure that that happens. Okay, because the landlord is subject to those particular rules by virtue of their ownership of the particular scheme. All right, so when we're looking at these 2 relationships, the first question is, well, can the body corporate evict my tenant? And the short answer to that is no. Okay, the person that has the ability in terms of our legislation in South Africa to evict a tenant is going to be the landlord in the particular circumstances. Okay, they are the ones that either own the property or put the tenant in occupation of the property. That makes them the right person to evict the tenants in the circumstances. The body corporate doesn't have the ability to go ahead and institute an eviction, okay, in South African law. The body corporate has a specific relationship with the owner, okay, and there are certain rules that have to be followed. So they are talking about the fact that there are dogs. It seems to me that there are dogs on the particular premises, and the dogs are causing some sort of nuisance, okay. Now, what is important in those circumstances is to check the rules of the scheme and the body corporate rules, okay. Firstly, obviously, are their pets allowed? Have the pets been properly authorized? Have they met the requirements that are set out in the particular scheme rules? Okay, that's one element. And then there's another element of nuisance. But the body corporate's ability in this particular circumstance is to render penalties to the owner if they fail to uphold the scheme rules. So it's very common to have nuisance provisions within your body corporate rules for harmonious living of all the occupants, and if they breach that, then the body corporate is entitled to levy a penalty against the owner for breaching the rules. That's all got to be provided for within the rules for them to be able to do that. So the correct move in the circumstances for the body corporate to do is render penalties to the owner if there has been a nuisance and they are of the view that the rules of the scheme have been broken. Okay, that is the correct process that they must take. They do not have the authority to try and evict the tenant directly in the circumstances. They can only take up their grievance with the owner. The owner must then decide, okay, well, do I evict the tenant because they are breaking the scheme rules and therefore the rule of the rules of the lease agreement, or do I handle it in another particular circumstance? So look, we don't have the benefit of what the lawyer's letter says. They say they received a lawyer's letter, but it would be very surprising to me if the lawyer's letter on behalf of the body corporate said, we're going to proceed to eject your tenant. that in my view wouldn't be successful if they took it anywhere near a court. They would only have obviously the ability to. They do have some rights on behalf of the body corporate to say, look, you need to address these particular issues. But to bring an eviction, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you very much, then, Nick. And then